Head over to KFAN.com, make the keyword contest, enter for a chance to win a Papa Murphy's family meal deal, including family-sized pepperoni pizza, cookie dough, and classic cheesy bread. That's KFAN.com, keyword contest to enter.
A very fluid situation here on the Common Man program, and the talkback, Teneby, says, let's go ahead and start 5-3-4 because, as you know, the head coach isn't real timely when it comes to starting his day after the game news conferences. So, and this allows me a chance to eat my lunch. I hope they're really long questions. 5-3-4 now here on the Fan.
Time now for 5 questions. Well, actually 3, but 5 sounds like more than 4. Question number 1. It's time now for the lowdown in Dinkytown.
The Gophers' 4-game winning streak came to an end at the hands of former Gopher quarterback Athan Kaliakmanis and Rutgers on Saturday with a score of 26-19. Kaliakmanis threw for 240 yards and 3 tutties. Max Brosmer completed 27 of 45 passes for 262 yards and 1 touchdown for Minnesota. Common, how disappointing was the Gophers' loss to Kaliakmanis and the Scarlet Knights?
It seems as though that the Gophers can just not handle
Success, attention.
Yeah, they put themselves in a great position with 4 wins in a row. 2 of them against teams that were, I don't know if they're still ranked, but were ranked at the time. Started to get non-believers like me to say, maybe this program is a little further along than I've been giving it credit for. And then they lay an egg against Rutgers. I mean, and don't talk to me about hostile environments. The stadium, I think, was half empty. It's quiet. I don't think they care about football. I don't think the population in that part of the country or near that university in New York cares. I don't think the student body particularly cares. Kaliakmanis was brilliant in the first half. I mean, he was 14 for 16 for something like 240, I think. I have the exact numbers. I jotted them down because I thought they were interesting. The second half, he really didn't do particularly much. Like I say, if you look at those numbers, he was 17 for 33 overall, 243 tutties. First half, he was 14 for 20 with 217 yards and 2 touchdown passes. And then it all changed in a very short stretch. Gophers had the ball. Brosmer hits their tight end, kid named Gear. He fumbles deep in Gopher territory. At that point, Kaliakmanis tosses a tutty. Gophers get the ball back. Brosmer sacked for a safety. They get 2 points there. They have to do the kick. Rutgers tacks on a field goal, and that was the ballgame. I mean, that was it. They were up 16-14. I think there was 8-10 minutes to go in the ballgame. And it was gone just like that. And, yeah, that would have been, if you're into bowl games, and apparently, the coach certainly is. He likes to bring up, we've been to 6 bowl games out of 8 seasons. What more do you want? A lot of programs would like to be there. The more wins you get, the better your bowl game. And now you drop to, what is their overall?
I don't even know what they're at anymore.
I think they were...
But the next 2 won't be very easy either.
They were 6-3, I think, headed into that game. Now they dropped to 6-4, and you're right, they've got Penn State. Now, it's here. I don't know if that makes much of a difference to anybody, but yeah, you'll have that game here, and yeah, that was disappointing. And for the Kaliakmanis kid, it must have been Because if I recall the way it went down, he'd started like a year and a half for the Gophers, right? He came in during the second half of 2 years ago. Then last year, he was the quarterback all season long. He had his ups and downs. I mean,
he had some comparing him to Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Rosen kept calling him the Greek kid because he couldn't pronounce his last name. And a close circuit to Mark, it's DiVincenzo. 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 He keeps going DiVincenzo, and he says it real fast, hopefully no one will notice. What was the other name he said one time? I like to pronounce it both ways. There was another name of another player that he said, well, I just like to pronounce it Doncic. He says, well, no, sometimes I like to call it Doncic, and sometimes I like to call it Doncic. Why? It's Doncic. But nevertheless, I got it. Calic Mattis was basically, the coach told the quarterback room, no one will be preordained the starter. It's going to be an open competition. And I'm assuming that's why Calic Mattis left. He thought, well, what do you mean? I'm your starting quarterback. And so he left. He went to the transfer portal, went to Rutgers. We got Brosmer. Brosmer's been very good.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting, well, the Gophers really blew that. They should have kept Calic Mattis, because I don't think there's a big difference between Calic Mattis and Brosmer. Brosmer might even be better. I don't know overall. But my guess is Calic Mattis is pretty pumped up for the game, because I'm sure he felt slighted. Everybody's got, they got an ego, and I'm sure he wasn't real thrilled about it. But, that's not a good.
I hadn't seen Calic Mattis or Rutgers play at all this year. And I remember last week listening to Barrero, and he was doing a breakdown of Calic Mattis' stats versus Brosmer's stats, and basically saying, hey, the Gophers made the right decision because Brosmer has been better than Calic Mattis this season. And there was an emailer that did the old, well, Brosmer has more to work with at Minnesota than Rutgers, right?
Okay.
Watching the game Saturday, those Rutgers wide receivers look pretty darn good to me.
They look pretty good, yeah.
I mean, the one's like 6'6", and you can just throw the ball up to him at any point, and he just comes down with it, no matter how good the coverage is. The other one's a great possession receiver. It looked like he had something to work with. And, one of the things I said about Calic Mattis last year is that he can make some good throws. He's got good arm talent, but he didn't really ever have a lot of touch on his throws. Well, he's gotten better at that part of his game, because he had a really good touch throw for a touchdown against the Gophers on Saturday. He seemed to be improving in those areas. Maybe it was just a one-game wonder, and he was extra motivated because he was facing his old team. But man, he played really well Saturday. You got to tip your cap to him.
Row the boat, and don't forget to bring your life jacket.
Question number 2.
It's now time to take an in-depth look at the welfare of the Wolves.
Had a tough loss last night, 95-94 to the Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat at Target Center. Anthony Edwards had an off night, shooting 8 of 24 from the field for 22 points. He also turned the ball over 6 times. Chris Finch took some blame for his late defensive substitutions and for confusion on the final possession. Colin, what sticks out to you from last night's Wolves loss?
Ant wouldn't talk to the media after the game. He was requested of the media. The media will ask who would they like to hear from. And, of course, Ant's name is going to come up each and every time. Where does Ant live, Teneby?
Rent-free in your head.
Where does Kevin... what's the name of the head coach? Spolstra?
Yeah.
What's his first name?
What is his first name?
I can't remember. I thought it was Kevin. That's what I need.
I don't think it's Kevin.
I don't think it is Kevin either.
Eric
Spolstra. Who lives in Ant's head?
Eric Spoelstra?
I think he does. Here's what it said. Fish Wrap Factory, West Side. This is Chris Hine. Anthony Edwards then declined to speak with reporters after the media requested he do so. Then in parentheses, Hine writes, players are subject to league fines if they consistently do not speak to the media when requested. Now, this hasn't been consistent, I don't think, but he's just making that notation. But before he left, he complained loud enough for reporters to hear in the room about the Heat's shape-shifting zone defense. Their shape-shifting zone defense. So I asked my basketball guy, what the hell is a shape-shifting zone defense? And then I found out, I'm sorry, I'm rather embarrassed about this, but shape-shifting is a term popularized by the Disney movie Moana. Moana? Have you
Moana.
heard?
I love the movie.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite Disney movies.
So
Moana 2 is coming out in a couple weeks.
So then you must know what shape-shifting is.
It must just be regarding the sale.
Shape-shifting is a term popularized by the Disney movie Moana. It means a person/thing can turn into a variety of other things on command.
Oh.
Something that shape-shifts is hard to defeat. Coach Spo is an elite defensive mind, and he apparently crafted something that had Ant bewildered and frustrated, was a guess. And this person who will remain anonymous, who I text and talk with, most people know, he played collegiate basketball. He's coached basketball at a high level. He understands the game. So Spoelstra apparently figured something out that was able to frustrate Ant enough that Ant was complaining about it in the locker room. And we talk about tend to be about copycat league, especially in the NFL, right? Well, we talked about it with remember when the Lions were able to, Buffalo's defense was brilliant those first few games. And then the Lions figured something out and scored not one, not two, but three tutties in the second quarter. And then the Rams sort of did the second thing, and people said, maybe they figured out Buffalo's defense. Well, we know that Jacksonville didn't learn anything from it, but maybe there's something there that Spoelstra figured out to frustrate Ant, and maybe that will be duplicated or replicated as time goes on. That remains to be seen. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Hopefully the coach will be around for his news conference. That's next. Right now, though, 10B has a keyword.
Yeah, the fan and two men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Just enter the keyword deposit at KFAN.com now for a shot of winning. That keyword is deposit. Enter now, KFAN.com.
It took place last year in Las Vegas. So thank you for bringing that one up. I saw whatever the number was in regards to not scoring and having 3 turnovers, whatever that record is over since whatever it was, 2010. But I just think that speaks to, kind of the resiliency of the team. Winning on the road is always hard, no matter what, even when you play a lot better than we did yesterday, especially offensively. I thought our defense, outside of really one drive, was phenomenal all day long. And the specialists, new guys, welcome to the party and having a huge impact on the game. So we'll take it. We still got our 7th win. We still went 1-0 yesterday with a whole lot of stuff to clean up.
Is there any update with Aaron Jones?
Yeah, he came in today feeling pretty good. He's, just day to day with the ribs, and expect him to might be limited, early on in the week as we kind of let him get back up on his feet, but feeling really good about having him for this week.
The run game, what did you think of Cam Akers and just the work he gave you?
Yeah, I thought just across the board with that amount of volume of carries for Aaron, Cam finding some space in there on some runs and showing some really good vision and really 2 weeks in a row now doing that for us was really big. And then I thought Ty, you felt Ty coming in the second half there and you felt some explosiveness getting downhill and that group as a whole was a real positive for us on a day we needed to lean on the run game a little bit more than maybe we have up until this point. And I was really proud of the way it was kind of a physical, kind of grinded out 3, 4, 5 yarder kind of day. We didn't really have any of those big hits that maybe take that to a really, really significant day. But for the most part, those guys all did a lot to find the space in there. I thought we were physical up front against some good edge rushers, and they got some, Armstead and some guys inside that can be hard to run it against. Josh Oliver was phenomenal again. TJ showing up as well, both in the pass game and in the run game. Those guys were really impactful.
What were your impressions of Sam after having watched the tape back?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, Ben. I think there's some footwork things that as you get into the meat of the season, you start, you got to make sure you're on top of just every little detail of what is the play, where are my feet and eyes supposed to be, and how disciplined are you despite how the day is gone. And I think it can be a really good learning lesson for Sam here in our system of just continuously trusting your feet and eyes and let them be, your barometer for how you make certain decisions. And I thought there were some things execution-wise that could have been better around him. But as a whole, offensively, got some chunks in the past game for, a game where the entire game plan really was predicated on not allowing those things to happen and really trying to frustrate our guys outside. I think that's why our tight ends, whatever they were combined, 12 for 124 between those two guys. There's a reason for that. And I still think there were some ops, though, that we can either be more accurate to the sideline on some throws, play with a little bit more timing, having our feet set and to the right areas of the field will eliminate unneeded wasted movement, maybe making us late at times to some things, but all of which is really good things to watch on a tape after you've won a football game, and now you can really coach those things hard. I know Josh and Grant and myself will do that, and Sam will be right back to where we need him to be, which has been, leading this team for 7 wins this year, and there's a whole lot of football left that we're going to need him to continue to improve.
In your post-game, the 90% shell or close to 90% shell defense that they played yesterday, and that was sort of borne out in some of the public data that's out there too. And I'm curious, what you take away from that. Is that percentage just like a one-off outlier of a team that just really was committed to doing it that way, or is that potentially something you'll see? I see moving forward. Or?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely, we see it most times anyway, Kevin. You go into a game, whether it's a 50-50 split, whether it's a situational D&D split, hey, second and 3 to whatever, this is a highly likely chance percentages wise that you're going to get this. We don't particularly get that. So I think that's why stacking some runs and just putting the ball in play. I think some of our efficiency of being able to have drives of, I think we had 4 of 10 or 12 plus, whatever it was some of those completions and run after catch underneath what was a significant amount of coverage at the intermediate and deeper levels. And then I think that we have tools that we can use, and we didn't really, the way we were kind of piecing together drives and moving it, we used some of those things, but it was about the red zone. It was about detail to finish drives and ultimately try to punch the ball in the end zone a couple times there. That game looks awfully different.
Yeah, but in your post-game speech, I think you made it pretty clear to Sam, just your belief and the team's belief. Did you feel like he needed to hear that?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just, I really, in those moments, I don't think about those things ahead of time, and I certainly wouldn't have thought about that ahead of time of not scoring a touchdown yesterday. So it's one of those things we're just in the moment. I'm speaking from the heart and what I really think and believe, both the good things that allowed us to win the football game and the foundation of our belief in one another. It would not be as authentic if an opportunity like that made us change the way we think about everything. But at the same time, I think it's important we look at it with a really close eye together and make sure that we, anything that can be coached is coached, and we hold that standard. And at the same time, areas where, I can help Sam, because there's plenty of those too. So I think it's just a matter of making sure full transparency to our team, even though it ends up being much more transparent to just the folks in that room every single week. But it is important for everybody in that room to hear me say that, not for any other reason than it's the truth.
How much were you reminding Kevin of just the difference maker that Hawk is? I know you just touched on.
Yeah, I mean, those third down catches, work in the intermediate area, the big 26-yarder where he got in the middle of the field against man coverage, where so much was kind of predicated to where Justin was and how the split safety man coverage was being distributed. It was kind of an on-the-fly, not a creation. It's a base part of what we do, but not one you would find living on the call sheet anywhere, that we kind of talked about and wanted to get TJ going that way, and just great execution, throw and run after catch for sure.
Yeah, you talked a lot about the response, for Sam's especially, turnover. What's sort of been your read on that, on how he's done that? Just not just yesterday, but season.
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job of that all season long. Even talking to him, on the flight home, spending some time talking to him. He's in a great headspace. He's ready to go to work. He's ready to, really diagnose, exactly the what and the why of kind of what took place and how we can be better. And that's why I feel really confident that we're going to go to work and improve.
Kevin, in terms of welcome back to the party, we know that it's great to have a kicker that's ready to handle that mental pressure of never kicking in an NFL game before and then get all four. How does that impress you in terms of? Yeah,
I told him before the game, I said it the night before the game in front of the whole team that we all had confidence in him, and you're going to go do your thing. It's just the same old thing. You've done this 10,000 times, but now you're going to be doing it to help the Minnesota Vikings win, and that's exactly what he did. Really proud of Park for sure, and we're going to need him here. For a time where we're not going to have Will, and we're going to kick field goals, and we're going to try to take points when we can get them. And I think he's off to a great start.
Cashman was back yesterday and obviously played pretty well. Van Ginkel had a sack. Do you find that when you've got, and Pace had a big play, when you've got everybody, does that make you that much better because you're fresh all the time? Right? You just talk about that linebacker group.
Yeah, I think having those guys back in there was just a charge of life of what the original, you put all those puzzle pieces together, the original plan, you see it coming to fruition where maybe guys aren't being stretched or stressed outside of their real roles, which are really versatile. But when you can get kind of that sweet spot of guys doing the things within the defense and pairing it all together with the disguise as a group of 11, snap counts, even along the D-line, even along the linebackers, those edge players kind of looking where, there was only 40-something plays in the game that they played, so you really don't worry too much about that, but they were getting on and off the field and giving us more ops offensively. So I think Cash told me at one point he felt like he hadn't even broke a sweat, and I said, well, that's a really good thing because you're playing really well. So I'd prefer that this keeps going, and he was great just having him back, green dot, communicator, IP, flying around doing his thing, and those edge players when they get an op like they do in situations like that feel really good about that coverage and rush, kind of getting married together and working well together.
It seemed like Cam Robinson was playing with some fire, just to see from his return and play overall. Yeah, it meant something to him. Clearly, you spend that much time there. It was an emotional kind of exciting day for him to go back there, and I think he was really happy with getting the win.
Kevin, do you and Sam watch the film after games, or is it like that, or is it just Josh and that group?
Yeah, I'll go in there with those guys. Sometimes I'll make sure that I'll get some time one-on-one with him and make sure that a lot of the times those conversations can be really valuable for the group as a whole, whether it's JJ, Nick, or Brett, and Josh or Grant, just that dialogue in there from the play callers' kind of intent. Hey, so, they had really gone to this kind of coverage. This is why I'm calling it. Did you know that at the time? Did you not? What can I do to communicate more? Am I communicating too much? I mean, it works both ways. You want these guys to be able to play and be prepared. They are really, really well. Josh and Grant do a great job. But there is, to Kevin's question earlier, there is an element always, it seems, that we need some adjustment on game day just because sometimes you can go into a game and get a totally different representation of defense. And that's where you got to be, flexible enough to do that in the pass game, and you got to be willing to commit to the run game and then convert some third downs, which we're able to do. And the number kind of, with the way kind of the game unfolded at the end. But I thought we were at a good place in the pass game, converting third downs for a while. We had some obviously in the red zone that didn't get to where we want. Had one conversion that they called Cam for, being in the backfield without really warning. So there was a few more out there to be had that might have changed our ability. First and goal at the 4 off of Addison's catch versus I think we were going back there 3rd and 17 or whatever it was and kind of got a screen and play to just make the field goal a little shorter.
I mean, what's your communication like with Justin on a day like that? Is there anything you kind of need to say to him to counteract frustration, or what?
Yeah. No, I think we've been through kind of a couple games like that before, where like there's trying to have a coverage plan to Justin, and then there's an entire aspect of team defense against Justin, and give them credit. They were able to, they were willing to sacrifice time of possession, the run game, tight ends, work in the middle of the field, things like that. And if we don't turn the ball over, maybe they look back on that as was that really the best way to go about it? I don't think we necessarily, there might have been some, maybe one, pressure, but outside of that, it was very, very much, hey, we're going to play this game the way we decided to play it and keep it close, which they did, because, we made some mistakes. And I think, when we can punch the ball in the end zone, Ben, and force them to, have to think about the way they're playing, because that's happened too. There's been many games where that kind of philosophy shows up and we're able to, get a lead, and then that whole game kind of shifts and changes from how you're trying to call it. But yeah, to answer your question, the dialogue's always ongoing, and he's such a, heady, smart player. He understands kind of what's happening. You can always tell by the way he, comes out of a cut and he's double teamed, or he's had a guy bumping him and a safety over the top, and he looks over his left shoulder and sees Josh Oliver running down the middle of the field, or TJ winning on a cut over the middle, and he's excited as anybody. He just wants to win. He's ultimate competitor, and love everything about him. Thank you, guys.
Nope, sorry. What's that? Is that my headset off?
Yeah, put your headset on.
I didn't expect that. What is that? My headset's on.
Check. What is that?
No, hold on. It's gone?
Yeah, it was yours.
No, I think it was on your end. I got the monitor speaker too loud. Because when you're crunching Fritos, lightly salted Fritos, the greatest thing they've ever done with Fritos is they have lightly salted ones. And they're better that way. And when you're crunching them, it's hard to hear the questions from the reporters, even on the monitor. And you know me, Tinneby, I have to hear because I love news conferences. They always, no matter the team, no matter the sport, no matter the coach, they always deliver keen insight into
I always love that one.
What happened in the past game and what to expect in the upcoming game. We'll have all of our reaction to all of the news conference action. Did you do the keyword, or did you not get a chance?
I did the keyword,
yes.
Okay,
very good. So we'll just take our break and come back. We're going to straddle the 45 as well. Back with more after this here on The Fan.
Head over to our contest page and enter for your chance to win a pair of passes to an early screening of Gladiator 2 in theaters on November 22nd. That's KFAN.com. Keyword contest for your chance to win.
Oh, I'm sorry. This, I think, is an AI-generated music bed, but I like it. It's very good. It's one of my favorites that we play. I'm Common. He is Tana B. We're here until 3. Then we turn it over to Big Ticket and JG. This text message came in and says, is there a secret Randy ratio for JJ we don't know about, or is Darnold just that bad with predetermined throws, forcing it to JJ no matter what? Maybe JJ's digs, like behind the curtains. A couple of things on that. We talked about that earlier. All 3 interceptions were passes that were intended for Justin Jefferson. It's always a good idea to try to get it into the hands of arguably the best wide receiver in pro football. There are some that might say, well, no, you could maybe Jamar Chase. I mean, but I think most people feel it's Justin Jefferson. Is this a one-off? I mean, not with the interceptions. We're seeing it. That's becoming too frequent of an occasion with Sam Darnold. But with all 3 interceptions on passes intended for Jets, is he trying to force it into Jets? As I say, you want to get it to him because he's a game breaker. I mean, we've seen the numbers. Youngest player to get to this, youngest player to get to that. He's the highest paid wide receiver in pro football for a reason, because he's really good. I don't think it's predetermined. I don't believe, other than we're going to have a number of our plays are going to be. I mean, I would think, and Tenneby, maybe you can answer this for me. I think when a play is called in the huddle, there's probably a primary target. This is the guy.
First read.
Yeah, this is your first read you're trying to get the ball to. And I bet in a lot of cases it's JJ and should be.
Yeah.
it seemed like they did a fairly good job of covering JJ. And then Hawkinson was really good yesterday in the first half. I think he ended up with, was it 6 catches overall, 6 in the first half? First half, he had and the coach pointed out I think he had like a 29-yard catch that was instrumental in getting the Gophers getting the Vikings deep into territory. The problem was that they couldn't capitalize. They were never able to.
He had something like 8 catches for 72 yards yesterday, targeted 9 times.
Yeah, and I think it was 6 in the first half, and he was being used early and often. You mentioned the trickeration play where they tried to get a little too cute, which leads me to another text message. This one says, I think it's time for KOC to give up the play calling and just be a head coach. He falls in love with his plays too much and overthinks things trying to be cute. Sometimes the simple answer is the best one. And I don't know. It's hard for me. I can't get into the coach's head. I'm not convinced that... I do tend to believe there is something about once these guys become play callers, and he's highly regarded, right? He's from the McVay coaching tree. He gets a head job. He's considered pretty good offensive mind, quarterback whisperer kind of thing. So sometimes I think you do say, I got this covered. And you do start to and you like the chess game, right? It's part of the fun of coaching, I would think. Where you're going, okay, you can tell B-Flow enjoys it. We'll fight fire with fire, he said before the Detroit game. These guys, they love that part of the game. It's what they do for a living. So I'm sure they do try to adjust as the game goes on the fly. Again, we always talk about they have that first 15, 20, whatever it is, play scripted before when the game starts. They watch film, they break it down, and they think, this is what we think will work against this defense when you're talking about the offensive preparation. And so they go through that, and in a lot of times it does work. You will see offenses oftentimes get off to a good start. We talked about this last week when we sort of half-jokingly talked about, maybe you ought to script the entire game because, all of a sudden when it gets past those first 15 plays, it just seems like the offense, at the beginning of the season, we didn't trail in those first 5 victories and in the Lions game. But before our first loss, we were up, was it 10-0 on the Kitties?
Yes.
And that was almost the entire first quarter, I believe. So the Vikings had only been trailing in a game for 3 or 4 minutes. I don't remember that exact number, which was an astonishing statistic. And it was because of the fast start in each and every game. They jumped all over everybody they played early on. And you got to credit the head coach and the players, but you got to credit the head coach and the other coaches for the game plan they put together and being able to execute it at a high level. Players were able to pull it off. And then as the game goes on, it does seem like, okay, the other team says, I see what they're doing. It happened in the Lions game. Lions were befuddled by early in the game. Wasn't the first series the Lions had the ball? I think they were facing a 3rd and 27. It was bad. B-Flow had them befuddled for the first quarter. Then out of nowhere, the Lions scored 3 tutties in a row. And my close personal friend, Ben Lieber, who really doesn't like listening to the show, we played the soundbite before. He looked at his wife and said, I don't like this. But I texted Ben and he said, if you blitz as often as B-Flow does, and it's usually first and second downs, they blitz a lot more than any other team in the league. If a team is able to figure it out and get, max protection or find a way to get guys open in the slots quick or across the middle, that defense can get chewed up, and that's what the Lions did in that second quarter. So, but offensively, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he's going to give up the play calling anytime soon, and I'm not even sure that he should yet. But it's something certainly to keep an eye on. Tana B, I think we call this Wild Today, correct?
Yeah, this is Wild Today. It's brought to you by Jim Beam, the official bourbon of the Minnesota Wild. After wins in San Jose and Anaheim, the Wild couldn't finish off that road trip sweep last night in Chicago.
Up are the Blackhawks. Kurashev with Seth Jones driving in the front of the net. Kurashev scores. Off the rush, he beats Gustafson cleanly. Philip Kurashev with the winner as Chicago prevails 2-1 in overtime.
Yeah, Joe Donald with the call last night on the Fan. The Wild lost to the Blackhawks 2-1 in OT. Matt Boldy scored the lone Wild goal late in the third period to force overtime. Philip Gustafson made 20 saves, and with 23 points, because they did get a point last night, the Wild have the highest total in franchise history through the first 15 games. Wild now get a well-deserved 3 days off. They'll host the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday night. That was Wild Today, brought to you by Jim Beam, a crowd pleaser since 1795. Hey, want to chime in on what's happening with your favorite KFAN program? Make your voice heard on the Brad, Sean, Brian text line. Let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard message and data rates apply.
We straddled the 45 because of the late start of the day after the game presser from the head coach of the soon-to-be big game world champion Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell. I don't know how I would describe his mood, if there really was one to be. He seemed to be just pretty matter of fact. I certainly couldn't have been real thrilled. Love the win, and you have to mention a couple times we're at 7 wins. Wanted to remind people we did win yesterday. I just think, and maybe I'm asking too much, and I don't know if other fans view it this way, when your team does get off to the kind of start they do, to me it's human nature to kind of not even so much look ahead to next week or a few weeks after that, or, the big game parade route in downtown Minneapolis. But you do start to say, does this team feel like it has championship timber? Is this a team where you can look at them and go, I can realistically see that I see a scenario where this team could be hoisting the Lombardo Trophy at the end of the year. I guess I could maybe still sort of kind of make that agreement. I don't want people to think I'm, get off and stay off. It's just, I'm trying to take an objective look at it. The defense, other than a couple of the games, the game against Detroit and the game against the Rams, where it seemed as though that the offensive coordinators, Ben Johnson for Detroit, and I'm assuming McVay's the guy calling the plays for the Rams, they figured something out. Now, in the Lions game, if you'll remember, the defense, they forced a scoop and score by Ivan Pace Jr. and had the game was theirs.
Better in the second half.
But then the Lions were able to make enough plays to get into field goal range to end up winning that game, including the one throw from Goff into double coverage. That was, I still thought it was kind of gutsy to do that at that point, because you throw into double coverage, it's generally speaking, good things don't happen, but it did for Detroit there. But I like the defense, obviously, and Cashman does make a difference. I don't think there's any question about that, so I apologize for those that wanted to tell me he's a combination of Nick Monicani, Ray Nitschke, and Dick Butkus, because I dismissed that. I will say he seems a little Monicani and Nitschke. I'm not sure there's Butkus there yet, but he certainly resembles two of those guys. But I have to admit, Teneby, I still have concerns about Sam Darnold. It's just the last few weeks. He looks a little like Mullins did last year, where he could spin it, he can throw dimes, but then at the most inopportune times, he finds ways to turn the ball over, throw interceptions, and
there's one difference between Darnold's play the last couple of weeks and Mullins last year.
And that is?
Our defense.
Yeah, I think
we're
you're
still
right.
winning the games because we have a better defense, so it can kind of mask and hide and take a little bit of the spotlight off of them.
Do you look at this team the way it's the makeup of it right now and say, I got a scenario where this team gets to the big game? I mean, I think it would be. Now we have to be careful when you look at those numbers that you'll say, like, the Vikings right now have a 89.9% chance of making the playoffs or whatever it is, right? Because remember, the Twins at one time had like a 95% chance of making the playoffs, and we saw where that went. I mean, suddenly, I don't think they go to Tennessee and lose, but you go to Tennessee and lose. Let's say the Bears somehow turn things around. You lose one there. And all of a sudden you're going, how do we lose those games to those teams? But with the way the schedule shakes out and with the way the defense has played, and when Darnold stays away from the mistakes, he's pretty good. They certainly seem to be a playoff team. I had a number of people email me at comment@KFAN.com suggesting sort of the same thing where they said, well, I think the team will make the playoffs, but they just have this feeling as we speak, things can change. It's only early November. We're not into December yet. Haven't reached January in the playoffs. But they seem to be wild card and maybe not getting very deep. What do you think?
Well, they got to take care of business the next 2 weeks. You already mentioned Tennessee and then that at Chicago. I know we've seen the Vikings lose to a lot of bad Chicago Bears teams on the road and previously, but
they're a mess.
Right now they look awful. It looks like Caleb Williams has zero confidence. There's a disconnect between him and the coaching staff there.
He was sacked 9 times yesterday. That almost seems impossible.
And one of the highlights I watched, he had all day to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So it's not just offensive line. Nobody's offensive line's not good.
Correct.
But they got to take care of business, and I mean, they should be in a position where you're 9-2 heading in the stretch. And I know, the stretch run's going to get a little bit more tougher opponents and not as easy. But if you're 9-2, you're literally just going to go 500 the rest of the way, and you're going to have a pretty darn good record.
That is correct.
And we're starting to see a pretty big gap now between the bottom. Like, there's 11 teams in the league that are 3-6 or worse. I mean, that's 11 teams in the NFL that they're out of it now.
That is correct.
Including, and to your point, I think our defense is big game worthy. I think our coaching staff, I know you were having the discussion last segment of Kevin O'Connell. I think Kevin O'Connell's a good play caller.
Right.
Does he make mistakes? Is he perfect? No, I don't. Most of them aren't. There's some play calls I disagree.
Ben Johnson's perfect.
Well, other than those 5 interceptions yesterday, but I don't look at the interceptions as bad play calls, right? I mean, if Sam Darnold is executing like he's supposed to, we're not looking at those 1 or 2 play calls where maybe KOC made a mistake on and nitpicking as much. But I think our offensive play caller's very good. I think he's big game caliber. I think our defensive play caller's big game caliber. I think our skill position players on offense are probably big game caliber.
And we can build this thing together.
But the quarterback is a massive question mark, and he's not really answering the questions lately.
You mentioned some teams 3-6 and out of it already. There's another team that's 3-7, and they're out of it already, and it's Aaron Rodgers and the New York Football Jets. Here's what he's doing, too, Tenneby, and I want you to tell me, I mean, I understand money talks, but something he's been doing lately. We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. There are a number of NFL news and nuggets to get to. Want to talk about the Wild as well. This team is, I got chided last week for mentioning that I'm now on the bandwagon. We'll start paying closer attention. And I've told you before, there are too many options for entertainment that if your particularly favorite team, especially if it's in your hometown, isn't performing very well, I don't dedicate a lot of time to them. But that's starting to change there. And some more Viking talk as well. Top of the hour break here at the Common Man program on the Fan.